Now, I don't know whether this video is going to enlighten you about some of the freaky shows that were made in the past, or that I was a total wimp as a child. Probably both. Hello everybody, my name is Nick Starman and welcome to Nick's Random Reviews, the only show that dives into the subconscious fears of children, especially my own. Because seriously, growing up for me, I watched a lot of television, and because of my parents being fans of the old stuff, they introduced me to a lot of vintage shows as well. Whether it was for good or bad, sometimes I wonder how I've managed to survive this long. Some of you will probably have no idea what some of these shows are because some of you were born way after these shows came and went and you had a much larger selection of channels to go through. But if you cast yourselves back to a time of 4 channels and VHS tapes, there were a lot of experimentations going on in children's programming. Some for the best and some just for your nightmares. Even though some of these shows weren't technically classed as horror genre in the slightest, the way they were produced and how they were portrayed on screen just created this special type of nightmare fuel, as I like to call it, which gradually scarred your brain, but because you were unable to turn away from the TV, it just got worse and worse until in the end, you just woke up in the middle of the night screaming about, how could they just do this to you? How could they just be so cruel? How could they rip your brains out and take your soul? Where am I? What? Oh, it's only you guys. I thought I was having a momentary relapse then. I thought I was going to go insane, but... So where was I? Oh yeah. So without further ado, I thought we would, take a look back and bring up some of these very terrifying things that for some reason I still class as lovable memories. So, without further ado, here it is. The top 5 kids shows that fueled my nightmares. Number 5, Thomas the Tank Engine. Now, fun fact, when growing up, this show was my favourite series out of everything before Pokemon and Dragon Ball came along. But it was a very love-hate relationship because specific aspects of the show scared the hell out of me, and one of them was the actual faces of some of the characters. Now, I have brought up in the past about the trucks' faces in my top 10 questions about my childhood shows, but the thing that made it more terrifying was the fact that the ones that didn't have faces made it worse because they just had no emotion, and with the amount of destruction they were causing, it was almost extremely demonic. Now, this got better over time, but in the beginning 2 seasons of the show, you had that grungy texture to everything. So it came out a lot darker and even sharper in parts, so specific faces on backgrounds and camera angles used to send chills down my back as a child, especially when Diesel was introduced. The first episode where he came on the show was just horrifying to me. The angry face, the shouting and growling, so much detail that wasn't needed would have me hiding until it was all over. But this wasn't the only example. There were countless times where I'd have to watch it and a face or angle would be burned into my brain, and when I went to sleep, I dreamed of being chased by these demonic, emotionless pieces of metal. It was generally shit your pants scary. This dramatically changed in season 3 and onwards as they began using softer tones and more vibrant colours to create a more friendly audience environment. But seriously, before that, holy Jesus. Number 4, Stop It and Tidy Up. Who the created this show? I ask you. I know Terry Wogan was probably asked to do it because he's a good sport, but no. Seriously, no. If you don't know what this show was, this was a cartoon about monsters that were named after commands your parents would give you as a child. For example, you had Stop It and his friend Tidy Up. Then Go and Play, who was a man-child with a toy train. Brush Your Teeth, which looked like Michael McIntyre, and this freaky monster called I Said No. And it was just about their adventures in the very congested wilderness called Do As You're Told. What used to freak me out about this show was the actual character designs and actually the noises they made, because they didn't speak, they just made these really obnoxious sounds. And yes, that probably sounds like me complaining about the new kids' music, but seriously, as a child, this was ear-piercingly uncomfortable. And just so you can know my point of view here, here's some examples.
Stop! I had to chase him around.
Yeah, exactly. It's like toddlers playing instruments while on sugar. But imagine that with the character designs, and it just creates this nightmarish effect. And as much as I tried my hardest to avoid watching it, the damage was done. It was burned straight into the brain, and the rest of your night was just spent screaming. Screw comb your hair, where's it was all a dream monster? Oh wait, I know where he is. He's huddled in the corner with his eyes wide open, afraid to shut them because he's so terrified. Screw this show. Don't screw Terry Wogan though. Terry Wogan is an asset and the British love treasure, and I miss him terribly. He was fine. The rest wasn't. Number 3, Tugs. So at number 5 we had trains. Now take that series and its constructs and replace them with 1920s tugboats and you have the exact reason why I'm afraid of boats and the ocean. Created by the same production company as Thomas the Tank Engine, Tugs is about, well, tugs. Specifically the Star Tugs who work at Big City Port in the 20s. Constantly at loggerheads with their rivals the Z-Stacks, and this was just too much for my brain to handle as a child. Now this again is a very love-hate relationship, although in this matter, I actually still can't watch some aspects of the series because it creates these horrible relapses of imagination in there. Because just take Thomas the Tank Engine and all the accidents and all the ideologies and put them in the water. It actually creates a more dark and more morbid feel to it all, especially when you're having dreams about drowning and being stuck in the middle of the ocean with no help whatsoever. Now you would think Titanic would have added to this, but no, this was solely the fault of this series for my fear, especially when you've got episodes where they're stuck in really compromising situations, or sinking literally, because that would just create such dread inside you. And you just like, and especially with the low angle shots of the camera looking up showing the magnitude of the situation, how much horror is involved. One episode that specifically freaked me the fuck out was the one called Regatta, where Lily Lightship, the lighthouse boat, gets hit by a ship, and not only does she get in danger of sinking, but the ship that hit her sinks as well. Now I don't want to sound morbid, but imagine how many people drowned on that boat. It was just terrifying. Because of this series, I actually can't go near harbours or boats anymore because of such crippling anxiety because of this series. So thank you, Tugs. Thank you so much. Sharing the number 2 spot, Wind in the Willows and Gumby. Now the reason these two are sharing the same spot is actually for the exact same reasons, because both these shows, even though I watched them at different times, found the same ways to disturb me to the point that I was backing away from the TV and running like the coward I am. Now I actually love these two shows. It's actually taken me a long time to become desensitized to these effects, and especially Wind in the Willows, who I rate highly on my list of best animated films, which I may bring up in a top 10 in future. Then again, who am I? WatchMojo.com? Cause I'm better. Now if you're not familiar with these shows or have forgotten entirely, don't you worry, I'm gonna make sure you remember now. Wind in the Willows was a film and animated series made by a company called Cosgrove Hall in the 80s and 90s, who were responsible for the film BFG and series such as Danger Mouse and Count Duckula. Not the new ones, the old ones. Get it right, the originals are better. But the show as a whole was about the adventures of Rat, Mole, Badger and the eccentric Mr. Toad, as based on the book by Kenneth Grahame. And then we look at Gumby, who is basically an American version of Morph made in the 50s, about a green clay boy who lives in a bookshop or toy shop. I was never sure as a kid, but there was a lot of children-orientated products around as he travelled into different books and had many adventures with his friends and was generally an enjoyable experience and had a wide range of stories to explore. Now, what makes this show more similar to this show in ways of tormenting me? Well, the first step is the actual animation style. I don't know whether it's got something to do with the budget or the time constraints, but sometimes the animation can be so jagged that it scares the living daylights out of me. I mean, I understand for Gumby's case it could be because it was made in the 50s and it was all about, experimentation, but Wind in the Willows, it's inexcusable. If you have a character that goes from A to B in a quick motion, don't do it so you've just sped up a zombie walk, because it is absolutely terrifying, especially when they're running towards the camera. I used to freak out when that happened. It just looked like a monster heading towards you. But when you did it in slow motions, it was a good pace, nice and smooth. But the moment they needed to run somewhere, it's like the animator was 5 minutes away from going home and just rushed it. And it's even worse because as they do it, there's like a shadow that engulfs them, so it's like you're being smothered as they do it. It's freaky as As a kid, I used to have nightmares about this kind of stuff, especially about black silhouetted figures with white piercing eyes running towards you in that very jagged manner. I used to scream like there was no tomorrow, but it doesn't get worse from there. Oh no, have you seen the human characters in this series? Who the designed these people? John Merrick? I know it's supposed to create a division of sorts between the characters, but my god, they are the most inbred, deformed Frankenstein creations I have ever seen. How these shows both managed to accomplish this is bizarre in itself. I can only congratulate them because whenever these characters were on screen, that was it for a good night's sleep. Out of all the characters to be afraid of, it had to be the background characters. Not the weasels, not the blockheads, no, the humans. And when they start doing that jagged animation, well, you just better pull a gun out and aim for the head, because seriously, could someone please do it before they start breeding? And number 1, watch with mother. I hope to never show my offspring this or for them to find it. This is the motherlode of freaky. I was shown this as a child and it still haunts me to this day. I even told my girlfriend, who has a phobia of dolls by the way, to not even go near this show. And if anybody likes puppets out there, please, just save yourself. You'll be afraid of them by the end of this, because this is watch with mother. This was a show that just had to exist. Not because it wanted to educate, not because it was something for children to watch when the television was first introduced. Oh no, it was made to traumatize and make us fear these characters, and by God, there were a good selection of them, and all in marionette puppet styles, not the cool Thunderbirds type ones. Oh no, it was a classic childish nursery rhyme type way, and Watch with Mother was just the title to lure your children away from storybook time and become mindless servants to Satan. So let's begin in a quick fire round of who we have on show here, to name a few. This series had 5 different shows within them, and they were about 10 minutes each, and each 10-minute episode was shown once on a particular day from Monday to Friday, and the system goes as follows. Monday was the least tame in my opinion, as it was called Picture Book, where this really patronising woman reads you stories and doing crafting exercises with her puppet of a dachshund, who had a very severe speech impediment, and seriously, why couldn't they have just got a real one? What, was Wooden Easy Supply or something? Tuesday is where we got the real meat and bones of this hell. Andy Pandy. Who the thought this was a good idea for children? This character was the devil, with that soulless smile on his face and dopey clown outfit, pure terrifying. And then you get his friend Teddy, who, put it this way, I'd sooner shoot than befriend. And then you get Luby Lou, who is seriously needing to eat something. She reminds me more of the girl from The Ring than an innocent doll. It's like they're in a limbo of hell and Andy Pandy keeps them there. Just me. And then Wednesday we continue the horrors with one of the most well-known pair, Bill and Ben the Flower Pot Men, who as claymation characters are more manageable, but in their original puppet forms they are just hell. Simply hell. I know this has got something to do with budgeting and timing and all this lot again, but seriously, you could have practiced with these puppets. Seriously, when they jump like Neo from the Matrix, and when they're joyous, it's like they're having a seizure. And with those creepy smiley faces that make them look like the Joker, their lovely, I guess, speech you would call it, doesn't exactly add to the soothing tones of classical music. And seriously, you weed, you've got to lay off the pot and start saying more words than just your name and singing songs when you're stoned off your face. We move on to Thursday, where we are treated to what could have been an early kaiju battle called Ragtag and Bobtail, which is hand puppets of deformed woodland creatures, having what I can only imagine as adventures, because the way they interact, it looks almost like they're trying to kill each other, and put it this way, Bobtail is either eating his young, or he is Godzilla in a fur coat, because he is huge, and those eyes just look evil, pure and simple. And then we finish on Fridays with which I can't really give much hatred for, because it seems like they were the most thought out episodes in the series, which were the wooden tops. But seriously, the opening card is just freaky. They're all sat still and you think it's just a title card of sorts, and then they move, and now you can't trust your toys ever again because it's like a horror version of Toy Story. All I ever wanted to see was a special Wooden Tops episode where they were introduced to an open fire, because seriously, who thought this was TV friendly? It is terrifying. Although not all of them are bad, it just had such a creepy and dark feel to it that when you watched it, you were just gradually sinking into your chair in fear and then not wanting to shut your eyes at night. Cause who the wants Andy Pandy to come out and play ever? I'd rather hang out with Freddy Krueger. But before I damage your sanity or my sanity any further, that concludes the top 5 shows that fueled my nightmares. Because seriously, do not show your children this until they're a tad bit older. I mean, yes, they're old already and not really good compared to today's standard, but these things can really mess a kid up. And I'm not the only one who thought this. I met a lot of people later on who had watched these shows too and thought exactly the same. But avoiding them, there actually are some good classic kid shows worth watching, and I may actually highlight them in a future video. But until then, thank you for watching, and I hope you've been enlightened, and also learned how to scare the hell out of me. But be warned, if you even try and do it, I shall hunt you down when I've composed myself and stopped crying like a little girl. I'm kidding. Or am I? But as always, remember to like, share and subscribe, and stay tuned for further episodes of Nick's Random Reviews. And until then, I've been Nick Down, and I think there's some formula for memory loss potion sitting around somewhere that needs to be drank. Excuse me. Ba 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 ba. Ragtag and Bob down.